Welcome, everybody, to episode 49 of Adapt or Perish, where we take a look at the classic movie The Karate Kid with Ralph Macchio and Pat Morita, and its 2010 remake with Jaden Smith and Jackie Chan. As always, before we step onto the mat, let's talk about our next episode. In 2 weeks, we're hitting episode 50 of the show, and we wanted to find something really special to mark the occasion. E.B. White's Charlotte's Web is not only one of the greatest children's books ever written, but it's been adapted into a feature film twice. For episode 50, we read the original book, first published in 1952, watched the 1973 animated movie produced by Hanna-Barbera, and watched the 2006 live-action movie starring Dakota Fanning. Spoiler alert, we spend most of the episode arguing about spiders. That's in 2 weeks on Tuesday, August 27th. For those of you joining us for the first time, welcome. If you enjoyed today's show, make sure to subscribe to get every new episode, and remember that we're always looking for suggestions, so don't hesitate to send them our way. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections about today's episode that you'd like to hear on the show, remember to email adaptorperishcast@gmail.com or tweet at us using the AdaptCast hashtag. If you enjoy the show, we'd love it if you would share that with the world by leaving a rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts. You can find the show notes from this and all other episodes at adaptorperishcast.com. And with that, on with the show, The Karate Kid. Hello, and welcome to Adapt or Perish, a podcast about adaptation. I'm Jeremy Latour.
And I'm Arielle Lipshaw.
Are you ready for a fun one?
Yeah, I am ready for a fun one, actually. We've been recording some dark ones.
Yeah. So here's my worry about this one today.
Yes.
This is my primary concern. I don't know if I'm ready to handle the embarrassment after revealing to our listeners that up until now, neither of us had ever seen The Karate Kid. Like, ever.
I'd never seen it. It was new to me.
Yeah. It's one of those things that, like, I always thought, well, I don't need to see it. It's in the culture, right?
Yeah.
Like, I know Sweep the Leg.
I guess I didn't realize you hadn't seen it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair.
Yeah.
That's a fair assumption.
Like, it seems like the kind of thing you would have seen.
Like, my exposure to this movie was, no, I was going to mention the Community episode, but that's dumb. I'm not going to do that. Yeah, my exposure to this was, as I say, pop culture, and that was basically it.
Yeah, and I don't think I even had as much pop culture exposure because I don't think if I've heard things from this in pop culture, I don't know that I would have necessarily recognized them as being from The Karate Kid.
Yeah. The thing of all the Karate Kid stuff, so just to get it out of the way, we are talking about two pieces of media today.
Yes.
We're talking about the original Karate Kid from 1984, and we're talking about the 2010 remake.
That's right.
We're not talking about Karate Kid 2 or 3 or 4. I think just 2 or 3, and then
Return of the Karate
the
Kid.
next Karate Kid.
There's a new YouTube series about the
about
bad guys.
Cobra Kai.
Yeah.
We're not talking about any of that. I will just say, of all of these, the one that has always delighted me the most is the next Karate Kid with Hilary Swank, with like multi-Academy Award winner Hilary Swank.
Why not?
I love that it exists.
Why not?
But we went back and we watched The Karate Kid.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about the original, and we're talking strictly about the remake. Spoiler alert, now that I've seen the original, I kind of want to watch all the sequels and watch Cobra Kai.
Yeah.
Do you want to do that too
No.
at some point in the future?
I don't, but you can.
Okay, that's totally
Is that
fine.
fair?
So now we've covered what this movie means to us, which
Yeah.
is nothing.
Apparently nothing.
Or at least it meant nothing
Yeah.
up until now. Maybe I should start with the back of the box.
I think you should.
Shall we jump right into it?
Please do.
Fantastic. There is more to karate than fighting. This is the lesson that Daniel, Ralph Macchio, a San Fernando Valley teenager, is about to learn from a most unexpected teacher, Mr. Miyagi, Pat Morita, an elderly handyman who also happens to be a master of martial arts. So when he rescues Daniel from the Cobra Kai, a vicious gang of karate school bullies, Miyagi instills in his young friend the importance of honor and confidence, as well as skills in self-defense, vital lessons that will be called into play when a hopelessly outclassed Daniel faces Johnny, the sadistic leader of the Cobra Kai, in a no-holds-barred karate tournament for the championship of the Valley. That was like one sentence.
That was one sentence.
I had to take so many breaths in that.
It's not 100% accurate.
What are you pulling out?
I don't think Johnny is a sadistic, vicious bully, for one thing.
You don't think so?
I mean, I don't think he's sadistic. I think he's a bully.
I think he's sadistic.
Okay.
This to me feels accurate.
Because they didn't say
Sadism is one
anything-
of the things I like most about
They
Johnny.
didn't say anything about the teacher that he's sort of in thrall to.
You're right.
Yes.
You're right. It is because, as we know, in karate, there are no bad students,
Only bad
teachers.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. It's very important.
I can make all these references now. This is fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, I guess my other quibble was like, I don't know that Pat Morita is necessarily such an unexpected source to learn karate from, but maybe I'm just saying that because, as you've pointed out now several times, it's very much in the culture that he is the karate guy.
Yeah, I think in the context of the story, I think it is very unexpected that the weird handyman at their apartment complex
Is a karate master.
is going to teach him karate.
Yeah.
That tracks for me.
Okay, that's fair enough.
I guess what I'm saying is this is the best back of the box that we've ever done.
Maybe so.
Maybe.
Also, the longest sentence.
It was so long. I had to breathe so many times
so
in the middle of
sorry.
it. Actually, one thing I'll pull out right here, calling Daniel a San Fernando Valley
Yeah,
teenager.
no, he's from New Jersey.
like he's a transplant. That's kind
Like,
of
that's
the plot.
The whole plot.
Do you want to go through the plot a little bit?
Yeah. Okay. So, for those who haven't seen The Karate Kid, which is probably none of you, I think we're the only ones.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
Did you know that as of now, everyone in the world has seen The Karate Kid?
Apparently.
It was just down to 2.
So Daniel and his mom
Yep.
have just driven across the country.
By the way, this is in my experience, movies that start with a Ralph Macchio like cross-country road trip don't always end this well.
What's the other one?
My Cousin Vinny.
Oh, gotcha.
And literally gets framed for murder.
Oh, no.
This one goes much better.
Oh, yeah. Now that I think about it, I didn't realize that was Ralph Macchio.
That was the only thing I could measure things by.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Anyway, go on. I'm sorry.
So he drives across the country with his mom
Yep.
because she's got a new job and a new life, and she's very excited about it. And they move into this kind of shady apartment building, and it turns out that the handyman is a karate master, and Daniel.
Why does it matter that he's a karate
Well,
master?
because Daniel is into karate.
Yeah?
He likes karate.
Does he need to learn it for any reason other than just liking it?
Yes, because he meets a very pretty girl and a bunch of boys.
Like how pretty?
She's quite pretty.
What, like Elizabeth Shue pretty?
Yeah, she is. Yes,
Oh, is she literally Elizabeth Shue?
literally.
That's very pretty.
Yes. And she likes him a lot. There's no conflict there at all.
He has to put no work into this relationship whatsoever.
It's very unrealistic.
Doesn't have to try even a little.
He also looks like he's 12.
He looks like he's 12, and it turned out he was 23.
And I asked you, literally my very first note is, Ralph Macchio, puberty? Question mark?
I mean,
I literally asked you, like, does he have a known puberty problem? Because he didn't even look like a teenager. He looked like he was 11, but apparently he was 22.
I think this is what movies have done to us.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just going to spoil this for the end. Like, Jaden Smith in the sequel, like, he's supposed to be 12. He looks 8 to me. And I think this is what movies have done to the way we look at age.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. We're just used to seeing older people play teenagers.
Mhm.
That could be.
So I found out some stuff about the making of this movie, and this
Okay.
might be a good time to start talking about who made this movie. Because after he meets the pretty girl, who does he then meet?
He meets Johnny.
So Johnny and some bullies, right?
Yes. Blonde Johnny and his blonde karate friends.
So I want to talk about the writer of this movie, Robert Mark Kamen.
Great.
So this movie was directed by John Avildsen. We'll talk more about that. It was written by Robert Mark Kamen. Here's some things just about Robert Mark Kamen in his career. Did lots of uncredited rewrites. I'll throw out 2 movies.
Okay.
Under Siege and The Fugitive.
Both great movies.
If that alone were his bona fides, I would be on board.
Fine films, both.
He also was he works very closely with Luc Besson.
Okay.
He co-wrote The Professional.
Okay.
He co-created The Fifth Element,
Okay.
the Transporter series,
Okay.
and the Taken series.
Okay.
He knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to say he knows what he's doing. This movie came about for 2 reasons, from 2 sources of inspiration. When Robert Mark Kamen was a kid, he got the shit kicked out of him at the 1964 World's Fair.
Oh, no.
And wanted to learn karate to defend himself.
Okay.
And his first karate teacher was a jerk who was really violent and kind of sadistic. And he ended up quitting because he didn't like that. And he ended up getting trained by someone who studied under a man named Shojun Miyagi,
Woo.
who was someone I had never heard of. He was an Okinawan martial artist who founded an entire school of karate by blending Okinawan and Chinese influences. So there's he put a lot of himself into
This movie
this.
is personal.
When I went to research this, the phrase semi-autobiographical was not one that I expected to see. And yet I found
And
it.
yet here we are.
And then the other part of it was Jerry Weintraub, who's the producer. He produced a number of different things. Nashville, Diner. He produced all of the new Oceans, like Ocean's 11 movies.
Mm-hmm.
He came to Robert Mark Kamen with a news article about a kid who is like the child of a single mother who had gotten a black belt in karate to defend himself from bullies.
Gotcha.
And he said, this could be a movie. And Robert Mark Kamen says, I can make it better.
That's
I have
great.
a lot of experience.
That's great.
I think it's fascinating.
Yes.
Anyway, so he meets Johnny and these douchebags.
So he meets Johnny and these douchebags. They're douchey to his new lady friend.
Okay.
And he gets the shit kicked out of him.
Like immediately.
Immediately. Like literally before even his first day of school.
Do you think he's defending her honor, or do you think he's just showing off?
No, I think he's showing off.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
He then decides not to leave well enough alone
No.
and continues to antagonize this group of bullies much larger in size than him.
Yes. Because as we said, Ralph Macchio at 23
was tiny.
Tiny wisp of
Just
a boy.
This tiny little boy. And antagonizes them to the point that they are chasing him dressed as skeletons to, I think, from the Halloween party.
It is Halloween.
It's
Like,
Halloween.
it's important to
And
say that
he's
it's
dressed
Halloween.
as a shower. It doesn't matter. But they corner him right by his own apartment building.
Yeah.
And they're about to literally kill him.
Yes. Like one of them has to hold Johnny back.
Yeah.
And can't.
There's one moral kid, we find out.
Yes.
Who it becomes important later on.
Mhm.
And Mr. Miyagi.
Is he Chekhov's moral kid?
He's Chekhov's moral kid. Mr. Miyagi comes jumping over the fence and kicks the shit out of all the boys.
All the children.
And saves poor sweet Daniel.
Yep.
So then Daniel's like, I would like you to teach me how to do that, please, because I am interested in karate.
Mm-hmm.
And they find out that all of these boys go to the same karate school and that their teacher is a gigantic piece of shit.
Oh, Kreese is
Yeah.
a horrible piece of shit.
He's terrible.
A comical piece of shit.
And the encounter ends with Mr. Miyagi promising that Daniel will go up against these boys in the official competition if the boys will leave him alone at school and not try to kill him every single day.
Because luckily, in like a month and a half,
Yes.
it's like 6 weeks,
Yes.
there is a karate tournament.
Yes, it is very, very soon
Mhm.
upcoming. And so the bulk of the movie is Daniel being trained in unexpected ways and unconventional ways by Mr. Miyagi to do karate. And in the process, learns something about Mr. Miyagi and perhaps something about himself.
So, okay, so this is a story. What you're telling me is this is a story about an underdog
Yes.
who needs to, by the end of the movie, compete in a physical tournament where people are beating each other up.
Yes.
And he needs to do it to prove to himself, and he is by far the underdog at this
Yes.
point. The person he's fighting is clearly better at this than he is.
Yeah, and Johnny has won like the last 3 years competition.
Yeah, and so what he needs to do is he needs to spend the most of the movie not only training, but also learning more about himself and his own confidence in getting the girl, and all the while being trained by like a crotchety old man who knows more about this than he does.
Yes.
And then he does very well and gets a happy ending.
Yes.
So it should be no surprise that John Avildsen also directed Rocky, which is just delightful. It delights me how much this is Rocky, but it's so much more fun.
It's great.
It's so much more fun.
It's great.
I like Rocky.
So his training, right?
Yeah.
Like, how would you describe, like, obviously, like, you know, you're going to learn karate, you're going to learn kicks, you're going to learn punches, you're going to learn kicks and punches together. Obviously, that's what he's learning, right?
Kick punches, punch kicks.
Like, right? That's
Yeah.
obviously what he's being taught how to do.
I mean, I am anticipating that his training is going to be somewhat confusing at the beginning and maybe mysterious.
it is a bit mysterious.
Mhm.
He learns wax on, wax off.
Which, again, now we know.
Now we know.
It is in the culture.
Yes. He learns how to wax a car. He learns how to sand a walkway. And he learns how to paint the fence.
And paints a house.
And paints a house.
Side to side. I'm
Yes.
making all the arm gestures. It's so
it does
stupid.
not translate to audio.
It's not stupid in the movie. It's actually delightful
It's
in the
wonderful
movie.
in the movie.
In context, it is stupid that I'm doing it here in this audio medium.
So what we learn is that in doing all these things, he has been learning both self-discipline
Yes.
and fixing up Mr. Miyagi's house,
And
all of the karate moves at the same time.
all the karate moves.
All the moves, the 4 moves. Apparently there's 4. Plus the crane.
Well, yes. Well, there's 9 moves.
Right.
Each of those both ways.
Right.
And the 1 crane kick.
And the 1 crane kick. That's right. That's all you need.
Did you know that it's not Pat Morita doing the crane kick?
No, it's really disappointing.
It's not. It's just, it was the stunt double out in the distance doing the crane kick. But it is Ralph Macchio doing the crane kick at the end.
Well, he looks pretty shaky, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, Daniel wins.
Yes.
He wins.
He wins despite rampant cheating on the part of his opponents and,
Oh.
and bad sportsmanship.
Like, I always heard sweep the leg.
Yeah.
I never knew what it referred to. But now I know.
Now you know.
That it's rampant cheating.
Rampant cheating.
So Chekhov's kid with a conscience is told by Kreese to not just fight Johnny and beat him, but also destroy him and take him out of the game.
Right.
He ends up hurting his leg very, very badly.
Very bad.
But not bad. But he does it so badly that he gets disqualified.
Right.
But then, how does Johnny get back in the ring?
Magic.
Magic, yes. Good old-fashioned Japanese magic.
Magic.
We're not given to
We're
understand how
not
it
given
works.
to know.
But he comes back in and he fights Johnny. And this is the point where
Johnny is told.
Johnny is told, sweep the leg. I'm so happy. I'm just so happy that I finally understand not just where sweep the leg comes from. I also understand what the significance of wax on, wax off is.
Yeah, I didn't know what that was.
Like, I never knew it actually had to do with his training.
Yeah, I had no idea.
I thought it was always more of a discipline thing.
Yeah.
That's what I always heard.
Yeah.
I knew about, like, catching the fly in the chopsticks.
Yeah.
I knew about that.
Which is not as major a plot point as you would think.
No, I mean, so this is one of the things that I feel like is going to be important to talk about now and later is this movie, I think you can kind of divide into 2 different areas.
Yes.
All the stuff. There's the bones of the story.
Mm-hmm.
There's the basis of the story. And then there's, let's say, the dressing.
Yes.
The icing. All the stuff. I'm making hand gestures to go along with
It's
this.
pretty funny.
Would you agree with that?
Yes, definitely.
And
Because the bones of the story is a story that's been told dozens, if not hundreds of times.
literally, I was just talking about Rocky.
It is literally one of the 38 plots.
Yes.
You know what I mean? There's not that many plots, and this is one of them.
And the reason I think it's important to say this is because it's going to come up when we talk about the remake.
Yes.
And about whether it's successful or not.
Yes.
But I think we should take a step back for a second.
Yeah.
You did a wonderful job going through the plot.
Thank you.
I appreciate you. I think it's important to say right now, and some people might have already figured it out, but did we like this movie?
Yeah, we really liked it a lot.
We liked it so much.
It's great. There's a reason it's a classic.
I rarely describe movies this way, but the best description I have for what it feels like to watch The Karate Kid for the first time is just, it's a movie that goes down really easy.
Yeah, it was great.
Like, it's not that there's no conflict. I want to say there's no conflict. It's not that there's no conflict in the movie. There's no conflict in watching the movie. There's nothing confusing. There's nothing unclear. You know who the good guy is. You know who the bad guy is. You know how the good guy is going to beat the bad guy, but you're not sure whether he can do it. It just is such a delight to watch, and you like every character.
Yeah, and not only does it go down smooth, sort of as you say,
Yeah.
but it was not problematic in ways that I really expected it would be.
Absolutely. What were you expecting? What were you afraid of? What's a version of the story that you were afraid we were going to watch?
I was afraid that a movie about a Japanese person from 1984 would play on stereotypes and racial insensitivity, if not straight up racism.
And considering that they cast Arnold from Happy Days as Mr. Miyagi, you might. I think that's a fair assumption.
Sure, I don't know who that is. Who's Arnold from Happy Days?
Shit, now we have to watch Happy Days.
I don't want to watch Happy Days.
Go on.
Mr. Miyagi as a character, it was almost like they were aware of this mystic Asian stereotype and were actively working against it. Like, almost as if they did it on purpose. And I would like to give them credit for doing it on purpose.
I would too.
Yes.
This is the reason why I brought up all the stuff with Robert Mark Kamen before.
Yeah.
Because it certainly seems like he wrote this character based on actual people.
Yes.
Not on stereotypes.
Right.
Which makes a huge difference.
Yes, because this character is so firmly placed in context as a person. He's not from Asia. He's
Right.
not from the Orient. He's not even from Japan. He's from Okinawa, which is a place.
Yes.
Like, this is how, and he says it throughout the movie. This is how we do things in Okinawa. This is where I come from. This is my history. These are things I learned from my father. This is how I grew up. My father was a fisherman. Like just very, very specific pieces of backstory. And then again, something they really could have ignored or shied away from. We're talking about a man who is 60
Yeah.
in 1984. Where was he in World War II? He was fighting in the American army against his country of origin while his wife was in a fucking internment camp in California. Like, that's so fucked up, but it's so like specific a history for a human being and not just like an archetype. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we find out that he has this tragedy in his past that his wife and unborn child died while he was at war.
Because of complications.
Because of complications. And they died in the fucking internment camp, which is horrible. And
relevant.
And perhaps a lesson we should have learned from I'm like trying to count how many years ago the 40s was. It's many, many years ago.
All I'm saying is call your representatives.
Yes.
Like call your representatives in Congress. You should have been doing it all the time. I should have been doing it more often, but please call your representatives.
Let's not put children in cages. Like, I just feel like that's something everyone can agree on.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm so angry now. I'm distracted. Okay. So he's a human being is what I'm saying. He's a human being with a backstory.
Yeah.
And it is one of the ways that he and Daniel are able to form this relationship because he's a person.
Yeah.
You can see why Daniel is interested in being around him because he's a person.
Do you think there would have been any chance of Pat Morita being nominated for an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor if the character wasn't written as well as it was?
No, I don't think so.
No.
Which
he was.
By
the way.
Yes.
And deservedly
so.
It's just a great subtle performance.
Just there's so much subtlety in it's so weird. We're talking about literally a children's movie from the 1980s or a family movie. Mm-hmm. But there's so much subtlety in the way that the characters are drawn and the details about the characters. So here's one thing that I noticed.
Yeah.
Daniel and his mom are pulling up at this new apartment building on the first day. He meets this kid and they're talking. The kid his own age who lives there.
Freddie?
Good old Freddie.
I think it's Freddie.
We don't see him much. He doesn't come back again.
No, Freddie's an asshole for
he's not
reasons
very
that I'll
nice.
get to in a second.
And as he's walking in, there's this like old lady sitting there who lives there just like hanging out. And he starts talking to her because she's also from New Jersey. And he's so interested in what she has to say. And his buddy is going, come on, Daniel, what are you doing? Like, don't talk to her. She's old. She's crazy. And Daniel's like, no, I'm having a conversation with this lady. Like, he's interested in old people and likes talking to them and is interested in their history and their stories. And this is now a thing we know about Daniel. And it makes us like him because it makes him a nice kid.
Yeah.
He likes adults and he likes talking to adults and being friends with adults. It was so interesting. That little detail didn't have to be there, but like it made it into the movie and really supported him as a character. Mm-hmm. Again, forming this relationship with Mr. Miyagi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we should kind of dial in on Daniel-san a little bit right now because I think you make a really great point. And I think that plays into something a little bit bigger.
Yes.
Is he a good character? Like, does this character carry this movie?
Yeah.
Because he has a lot on his shoulders at this point. He has to carry this entire thing.
Yes.
Is there anything at all that you would call like unrealistic about this character and his story?
Well, as you alluded to before, he manages to attract the prettiest, most popular girl in school immediately.
Oh, yeah.
And there is no tension in that relationship at all.
Well, here are some examples of the tension that they try to introduce.
Okay.
Well, first of all, so Johnny is her ex-boyfriend.
Yes.
So right away, whoa, differences. Yes. And then later, things happen between them where, I mean, clearly that's a big reason why he's kind of afraid to go after her.
Yeah.
But he's just, he doesn't have that in it. He doesn't have that in him to be afraid of something and not do it. Mm-hmm. He goes for it, mostly because she's Elizabeth Shue Pretty. And then later, there's a whole scene where he goes to her country club maybe?
Yeah, her country club.
There's like a big party and he's watching
There's
through.
a dance.
Yeah, and he's watching through like the kitchen door out onto the dance floor and she's dancing with her dad and then suddenly Johnny cuts in
Yeah,
because he's
because
a
of course
piece of shit.
Johnny goes to the country club.
And he sees it. And this is a classic case of mistaken intentions. What is this trope? What is this trope of someone seeing something and then running away before the other person can explain it?
I have no idea.
It's so dumb. But anyway, this causes a rift in their relationship.
He ends up with spaghetti all over him at one point.
Yeah, it's like embarrassing for him, but
Yeah.
but at the end it like doesn't matter at all.
Yeah.
Because she is there for him the entire time. From the minute like the reason he goes up and talks to her at the beach for the first time is because not only is he staring at her, she is staring at him.
She's giving him the eye.
Like I feel like there's another version of this story where she is the main character because she has agency. She is going after what she wants. We as an audience don't 100% understand why she's going after the thing that she wants.
No idea.
Like I don't 100% get her motivation.
Yeah, I mean, there is this one scene where they go to like on a date to like the local fun park. You know, there's like miniature golf and like bumper cars and an arcade. It looked real fun, actually.
It did.
But they're like playing miniature golf and they're like golfing together, like both with their hands on the same club, like laughing and this and that. And I turned to you and I was like, I don't understand. Like, why is she helping him? And
This
you
is-
were like, what?
Everyone just got a window into our relationship. This is the competitiveness that I have had to live with for 5.5 years.
I said, I don't understand. Have you ever played miniature golf with anybody like that? Like, why would you let somebody else touch your club? They might try to sabotage you. Like,
Because of the romance.
but what about the rules?
I still love you.
We play miniature golf very competitively in my family.
You and I have to be so selective about what games we can play together because there are some games I will not play with you.
Trivial Pursuit.
I won't do it. I won't do it at all. You are a bad winner. You're a very bad winner.
It's not true.
It is true. I love you though.
Anyway.
Yeah, what do you think of I hate to put you on the spot,
Okay.
and I apologize in advance for putting you on the spot. What do you think of the female characters in this story? Like, let's count them up really quickly.
Yes.
So there is Allie,
Yes.
his girlfriend.
Yep.
There is his mom,
Mhm.
Mrs. LaRusso.
Yes.
Who Lucille.
Yes.
Who I think is a sheer delight.
She's great.
What do you? But that's kind of it.
There's Allie's Jewish best friend who's in love with her.
Oh my God, I forgot about her. Shit.
Yes.
I'm just going to step back for a second. I'm going to give you the floor. I need you to please talk about this. I am so excited to hear about this. I'm going to throw in just like the TED Talk theme right here, please. And here we go.
You know, in the Brady Bunch movie, how the joke is that Marcia has a best friend who's in love with her, and it's not referred to throughout the entire movie, but it's so obvious because if you haven't seen the Brady Bunch movie, the point is that they've been transplanted into the 90s, but they still think they live in the 60s, so they don't understand anything.
This is the second time not in a row that you have brought up the Brady Bunch movie, and I saw
You
it
have no frame of reference.
I saw it the one time, I think in the theater or on video. I can't remember.
What I'm saying is I think that Allie's best friend in this movie was the model for Marcia's best friend in the Brady Bunch movie, which is a satirical, like, spoof movie, because she's so clearly in love with Allie and wants Daniel to step the fuck away. She doesn't like Daniel from the beginning. She's super mean to him. She's like, stay away from my friend. And then when they're at this fun park and Johnny and the gang show up, she's like in the car with them. And you turned to me and said, look, she's not in love with Allie. She's on a date with like Johnny's friend. And I said,
She's hanging out with Allie's
to
ex-boyfriend.
make Allie jealous.
Fair enough.
This concludes my TED Talk.
I completely forgot about her. So, in general, how do you feel about the female characters in this?
I think they're all pretty good individually.
Mm-hmm.
When you take the
Oh, and Dog Lady. I forgot about Dog Lady.
a dog lady, old
Yeah.
old lady at the beginning.
Yep.
There's just the movie isn't about them,
Yeah.
but I don't think that's a flaw necessarily of the movie because the movie is very specifically about two people. And like could the Karate Kid have been a girl?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
She is a girl in the next Karate Kid with Hilary Swank.
Mhm.
But she doesn't happen to be. She happens to be a boy named Daniel in this movie. No, I love the mom. The mom is great. The mom has more of a personality and like agency and like wants and needs than your average like just stereotypical movie mom who's just there to be the mom.
Yeah.
She's so excited about this move to California. We know a lot about her. I don't understand the whole thing about how working in computers in California in the 80s is a low-paying job with bad benefits.
Okay, hang on. I have a lot to say about his mom's job.
Okay.
Okay, so the whole movie starts with them going out to California so she can work at a company with computers.
Yes, a new job.
That goes away
Yes.
at some point. They never talk about the job after a certain point.
Uh-huh.
But he is visiting her while she's in a restaurant.
Okay.
Remember? Like
Yeah,
it's the
yeah,
restaurant
yeah.
right across from
Across
the Cobra
from Cobra
Kai.
Kai.
Yeah. So I found out some stuff. There's a deleted scene.
Oh gosh.
I don't know
Okay.
if they never shot it, but I do know that it was in the script and is not in the final movie, where you find out that the company she was working for went bankrupt. So here is some dialogue. This is the original dialogue from the script. This is her talking to Daniel about her new job across from the Cobra Kai.
Okay.
They went bankrupt, the computer company. But listen to this. I walk out of Rocket, the computer company, with the beginning of Excedrin Headache 1 through 10 about to come on, and I'm going back to the car when this woman comes flying out of this restaurant, the Orient Express, and she's screaming, I quit, I quit. Right behind her is this guy, and he's yelling just as loud, you can't quit, you're fired. It's 1 minute to noon, people are coming into lunch, I'm the first but only applicant, I got the job. And then, when Daniel questions, this is I'm reading here, when Daniel questions her new position as a waitress, his mother clarifies, she's not a waitress, she is a hostess.
I see.
That is the explanation for her job.
That makes a lot more sense because at the beginning of the movie, we hear that she's moved out to California to work in computers.
Mm-hmm.
And then we hear that her benefits aren't very good and she doesn't have enough money to put him in karate class. And I didn't understand that. And clearly, there was a missing piece of information, which was
Yes.
that she lost the original job.
But to your point about the fact that the women in this movie the movie's not about them.
Yeah.
That's why this got cut,
Yeah.
because it wasn't about her.
But it did make it confusing.
It did. I'm not arguing it should have been cut. I think this should have still been in the movie.
Yes.
If I go through all the female characters in this, I feel like the thing that I want to ask is two things. One, does what they want make sense? And two, do their actions make sense?
Yes.
Do their situations make sense? Okay, let's start with his mom.
Mm-hmm.
What does she want?
She wants her son to be happy.
Okay, great. Does that inform all her actions over the course of the movie?
Yeah, sure does.
There's that wonderful scene where she takes him and Allie
On
on a
the
date,
date.
and they pick her up in front of her parents' giant house.
Their mansion.
And of course, they can't get their shitty New Jersey car started, right? How does his mom feel about not being able to get her car started in front of these two people who own a mansion?
Oh, she's not embarrassed even a little. She's like, all right, well, you steer. I'm going to hop out and push.
She's delightful.
Yeah.
This is a confident character who understands. She knows who she is. She knows what she wants. What she wants is for her son to be happy, and I can identify with that, and I appreciate it.
Yes.
Let's talk about Crazy Dog Lady.
Yeah.
What does she want?
She just wants to sit by the pool.
And do her actions back that up?
Apparently.
Okay, what does Allie's friend want more than anything?
To bone Allie.
And do her actions back up what she wants?
Fuck yeah.
What does Allie want more than anything?
For some reason, Daniel.
Do her okay, and this is where I think it goes off the rails a little bit. Why though?
We don't know. We're not given
Why?
to know. We
It
do not know.
Makes no sense.
Because men wrote this story.
Yeah. By the way, like Ralph Macchio was older than Elizabeth Shue in this movie. He
He
looks
looks 5 years younger.
he looks 12. She looks like a teacher at his school. It's maybe was that just the style in the 80s of
don't
hair
know.
and
Yeah, I
clothing
don't know.
and sweater vests.
Yeah, she wears a lot of sweater vests.
She looks great.
She looks fine.
But that's the female character.
Yes.
So we know who our heroes are.
Yes.
We know who again, let's talk about the hero's journey. We know who the heroes are.
Yep.
We know who the people are that are going to help him along the way.
Yep.
Allie, Lucille, and Mr. Miyagi.
Yes.
He has to fight some kind of villain. And of course, for this movie to be the classic that it is, we need a villain who is nuanced,
Mm-hmm.
who we understand,
Mhm.
who we empathize with,
Mm-hmm.
and someone who represents something that is more complex and more mature for an aging audience in 1984.
Okay.
We get Johnny, the blonde karate douchebag,
Yeah.
who's none of those things.
Well, Johnny is essentially the henchman of the teacher.
Yeah, Kreese. Would you say
Kreese-
Kreese is the villain?
Kreese is definitely the villain, but he is also none of those things. He's just evil for no reason.
So Kreese, and I can say this because this came out in 84, so this would have been in the culture. Kreese is the Emperor, and Johnny is the Darth Vader.
Yes, that's right.
That's really what's going on
For
here.
sure.
Like I can't empathize with the Emperor at all, but I can empathize a little bit with Darth Vader.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
Right?
He's just doing what he's told.
But he's still the bad guy.
yes, he's definitely the bad
He's
guy.
definitely the bad guy. How did you feel about William Zabka as Johnny?
I mean,
Because I know how I felt about
how
him.
did you feel about him?
I fucking loved him so much.
Good.
He's like one of the most delightful villains I've ever seen in a movie.
Why?
Because of the purity of it.
Uh-huh.
Like I feel like there's a thing that can happen where the villain, like I was joking before about like that. What I was doing my joke about like empathy and layers and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I like seeing that, but it's not always 100% necessary.
Sure.
Sometimes in a movie like this, I really just want to know who the bad guy is, and I want to know who I can root against.
Sure.
And I'm really thankful when I get little bits of information that do give me something that makes him a little more three-dimensional.
Mhm.
So we do get that with Johnny.
Yeah.
Because the thing we get with Johnny is clearly he's dealing with a lot of expectations.
Mhm.
And as Miyagi says, like I think this is smart writing,
Yep.
as Miyagi says, there are no bad students, there are only bad teachers.
Yes.
And we see that borne out in Johnny.
We see he has a bad teacher.
Because Kreese is a piece of shit.
He's awful.
Absolutely terrible. But Johnny's still awful and
Yes.
incredibly sadistic and violent. I don't know how you say that Johnny's not sadistic.
I don't know.
He's so sadistic. We need Chekhov's kid with a conscience to protect Ralph Macchio from Johnny like multiple times.
It's true. You're right.
I think Johnny's a delight.
Okay.
I had so much fun watching Johnny, and I had so much fun watching Johnny lose that fight at the end because he's a piece of shit. But like, he's so perfectly and simply and directly realized.
Yes. He's overconfident.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Do you think it's even necessary that he's Allie's ex-boyfriend?
No, it doesn't matter.
Like, I actually don't think that matters
I don't
that
think it
much.
matters. It's not why he doesn't like Daniel. He doesn't like Daniel because he doesn't want this kid from the outside to beat him in karate.
Yeah, because like Johnny doesn't spend much of the movie pursuing Allie.
No, he does not.
He's like mostly antagonistic towards her. There's just that one scene at the country club where he's trying to dance with her.
Right.
And
their families are friends, I think.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's part
I
of
got
it.
that impression.
And then she punches him in the face.
Yeah, she slugs the shit out of him.
I'm glad you held back. This is, of course, the family episode. But then there's him and Cobra Kai.
Yes.
What do you think of all of his little Cobra Kai friends?
Well,
did any stand out
I
in
did
particular?
notice that the only kid that kept getting beat up consistently was the one black kid.
Yeah. Constantly gets the shit kicked out of
Constantly
him.
gets the shit kicked out of him.
Immediately.
Like literally the teacher is like, okay, you go over here, black kid, stand in the middle of the room. Okay, you other kid, come and punch him.
His last name is Brown, by the
Yeah,
way.
good. Good.
The character's last name is Brown.
Good. And then he gets the shit kicked out of him at the competition too. So that didn't seem right.
There's a competition, you say?
Oh yes. Should we move seamlessly into the competition?
Well, a whole bunch of things have happened at this point.
Yes.
I feel like we're glossing over some things. We've talked about Daniel's journey.
Mhm.
He does learn discipline.
Yes.
He learns karate.
He learns wax on, wax off.
He gets very good at karate.
He's good at karate.
He's a good karate boy. We certainly learn a lot more about Miyagi.
Oh, yeah.
We learn about the complications.
His whole
We
backstory.
learn about the complications. Because there were complications. It's so sad.
There was no doctor in the camp.
There wasn't. We know all about what's going on. Like he and Allie are cool by this point.
Mhm.
Everything has been resolved. Like
Yes.
if the tournament doesn't even happen, Daniel's life is demonstrably better now than it was at the beginning of the movie.
Well, it's only better now because the Cobra Kai have agreed not to beat him up every day.
Oh, so there's stakes, you say?
There's stakes
Because
here.
what happens if he doesn't fight in the tournament?
They're going to beat him up every day.
Gonna beat the shit out of him.
Every day. And he gets his ass kicked. He's got black eyes. He's bleeding. He's got like a broken like bike. Like this kid is getting, it's not like minor bullying. This kid is getting the crap kicked out of him every single day.
Now, here's my question.
Yes.
And I didn't realize this until right now. Let's say he didn't fight in the tournament.
Yeah.
So the ramifications are that the Cobra Kai kids are going to come after him?
That's my understanding. It's now open season on Daniel.
But now he knows karate.
Well, I don't know, sweetie.
Maybe that's what he wants. No, because the whole thing is like he needs to face his fear.
But as we know from Mr. Miyagi, 5 against 1, never fair.
That's true. 1 against 1 is
Okay,
fair.
yeah.
I guess 5 against 1 is fair when you're going up against them one at a time.
And also, you're an adult and they're actually children.
Yeah, because Ralph Macchio's 23.
Yeah.
I think Johnny's like actually
18.
I
was actually talking about when Mr. Miyagi beats them all up.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
I'm so sorry. Yes, Mr. Miyagi fights a bunch of children and
Yes,
wins.
he does.
Yes, he does. So they go to this tournament, and Daniel, let me ask you this.
Yes.
How believable is it to you that Daniel kicks major ass from beginning all the way up to Johnny?
It is not, and I'll tell you why.
Why is
and
that?
we've talked about this before.
Because
is-
I kind of thought it was, but please go on.
Here's why. It's not because of his superior or inferior karate skills. It's because they've gone to great pains to set up the world.
Yeah.
And then suddenly the world of the tournament makes no sense. It's incomprehensible. First of all, he literally doesn't know the rules. Mr. Miyagi doesn't know the rules.
Yeah, but that's a funny joke.
But like, you can't win a competition if you literally don't know what the rules are. Because how do you know if you break them? A of all. B, the This is that competitiveness I was talking about. Here's a great example. Here's a great example of something that made no sense and was silly.
Mm-hmm.
They're walking into the competition. It's Mr. Miyagi, Ali, and Daniel. And an umpire stops them at the door and he says, "Oh, I'm sorry, she can't come in because only students and teachers are allowed on the floor." And they make up this whole thing about how she's the interpreter because she speaks Japanese,
Yep.
blah, 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 blah. He's like, clearly doesn't want anything to do with them and doesn't want to deal with them. So he's like, "All right, just go, just go." They walk onto the floor and immediately you see hundreds of people on the floor, none of whom are students or teachers.
It's basically like 5 kids who are competing and then 50 randos.
Yeah, just randos.
Just hanging
like
out.
other blonde girls like cheering them on who are not in karate uniforms.
They're all interpreters though.
Yes.
Clearly.
So I think that's what I'm saying. I don't understand how it's possible to win a competition where you don't know what the rules are.
I think that's fair.
Yes.
For me, none of that ever really mattered.
Gotcha.
And because I think this is a movie, goes back to what I was saying before. I think there's 2 things that are going on in this movie. There's the basic bones of the story, and then there's all the flavor on top of it.
Sure.
And this is a point, especially in this third act when we're at the tournament, this is a point where both of those things are working together so well to kind of propel the narrative forward.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you are racing to the end. You
Yeah.
as an audience already have a really good idea of how this is going to end. It really is Rocky for kids.
Yeah.
Like, it is. Even though Rocky doesn't win at the end of Rocky.
Oh, spoiler.
Did you not know that?
I did not know that.
I don't feel bad spoiling Rocky.
I literally did not know that.
No, the whole thing is at the end of Rocky that spoiler alerts for Rocky. The whole thing is at the end of skip ahead 30 seconds. The whole thing at the end of Rocky is that he wins just by not losing.
Okay.
Like, he's going in as such a long shot against Apollo Creed that no one expects him to make it through everything, but he makes it through every single round, and Apollo Creed never wins based on a knockout, he wins based on points.
Gotcha.
But that's the only way he wins, is based on points.
On a technicality.
And that is a victory for Rocky.
Got it.
Because Apollo Creed had everything to lose, but Rocky had everything to win.
Got it.
So he actually loses,
Okay.
but in doing so wins.
Unlike the Karate Kid, who does win.
He wins in every way possible.
He wins by doing the crane kick after
wins
he
in-
gets his leg magically healed, as aforementioned.
Yes, he wins inside. He wins internally. He wins externally.
Yeah.
He wins in the hearts and minds of everyone around him.
And then the movie just ends.
Okay, so this is a pet peeve of mine.
Yeah.
This movie is not perfect. Like, let's be clear.
It was enjoyable to watch, but definitely not perfect.
This is not a perfect film. I think that the 90% of the love that it has engendered these days is nostalgia. That isn't to say it isn't a really well put together, entertaining movie, but it's not the greatest movie ever made. And I think some people love it like it's the greatest movie ever made.
Yeah.
But my favorite movie is Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan.
Mm-hmm.
And so I get it. I completely get it. That being said, there are some flaws in this movie. I think it's a little long.
It's a little long.
Yeah. We've already talked about nothing with Allie's relationship with Daniel makes sense.
No.
I genuinely don't think it makes sense. It does a thing at the end that frustrates me more than anything. If I had to make a top 10 like tropes I don't like in movies, I don't like when movies end abruptly. I don't like when the filmmakers say they're clearly sitting down to write and edit, and the denouement has finished. Like the final confrontation has finished, the hero has won, and they're sitting back and going, what else could we possibly show? What else would the audience even want to see beyond what they just saw? Roll credits.
Because, like, if you see, like, a graph of, like, what a story should be, like, you have, you know, it kind of looks like a little spike because there's a minor conflict, and then there's a big spike, which is the big conflict at the end, but then it is supposed to wind down.
Yeah.
And this is like, oh, no, we've gotten to the top. We're there. We've climbed the mountain. We've reached the top, and scene.
Yeah.
We don't find out anything what happens after. We don't find out how anybody feels about it. Like, it is just, like, literally arms up in the air, yay, we won, end of movie.
I hate that.
Yeah.
I really hate it. I actually found the end of this movie kind of dragged it down a little bit for me. I was feeling so good going up right until the ending, and then suddenly the credits roll, and I lost so much of that momentum. Because this movie has a ton of momentum. That's like a thing I didn't like about it.
And the nice thing is, if you want to find out what happens, just watch the first 5 minutes of The Karate Kid 2, because it's just the next scene.
Yeah, there's a whole scene that they decided not even to shoot it.
Yeah.
And there's like an altercation with Miyagi and Kreese out in the parking lot where Kreese is beating up Johnny because he lost, because Kreese is a piece of shit. And Miyagi comes in and kicks Kreese's ass. And he's about to destroy him. He's about to like cut his head off with his hand, because that's a thing. Instead, he just like honks his nose.
Chooses to walk away.
It's very cute.
Anyway, it's not in the movie that we're talking about, though.
No, but it's important.
Also, Kreese insults knitters. So, you know.
Oh, what does Kreese say about knitters?
He says, like, gentlemen, this is karate, not knitting class. And I wrote, fuck you.
Fuck you. Fuck you. Asshole.
I know, right? What a jerk.
You don't say that in this house.
In this house.
This isn't even the first time that you've made a note because a character in something we were watching disparaged knitting.
It's like at least the third time.
Asshole screenwriters.
What jerks.
Not liking crafts that people love. What a bunch of jerks. But like at the end of the day, this is a super fun movie.
Yeah.
Like this is normally the point where I would say, if you haven't seen this, you should watch it. This is now the point where I'm going to say, you were all right.
Yeah.
This is a very, very good movie. I'm glad I've finally seen it. And of course, this is not the only version that we watched.
No, because in 2010, they remade, not a sequel, not a sequel, not a spin-off series. They remade the movie, The Karate Kid.
Yes. Now, going into this, what were your expectations?
In a word,
Yeah.
low.
Okay. What are some reasons why your expectations were low?
Jaden Smith.
Okay, like, so right off the bat, there's so much to unpack here with Jaden Smith, recording this now in 2019.
Yeah.
What are some things that gave you reservations about Jaden Smith?
Well, he's a douchey Twitter person now.
Yeah, like the douchiest.
Yeah, like famously so.
Yeah.
But in this, he was a tiny child.
Right, okay, but he's douchey Twitter person now.
Yes.
What's his acting resume like now?
The Karate Kid.
Well, no, he was like also After Earth,
Oh, okay.
for example.
I didn't know.
Yeah, that one's not very good.
Okay.
So current acting resume, current Twitter life,
Right.
that's a problem.
It's a problem.
There's another big problem that I see, which
Okay.
is just the unmitigated, unbridled nepotism
Yeah.
of this. Because this movie had like 3 producers of note.
Uh-huh.
One was Jerry Weintraub, who
Great.
produced the original Karate Kid,
Fine.
and also Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith.
Jaden Smith's mom and dad.
Yes.
Yes.
So right off the bat, that's another reason why I did not have high hopes for this.
Yes.
Because that like nepotism just on its face is something I don't approve of.
Mhm.
So that's a couple of things. Any other reasons why your expectations were low?
Well, we had seen the trailer.
Yeah.
And the whole thing was like, we're moving to China. And I just thought there would be, again, a lot of cultural and ethnic and racial stereotyping in a way that would be unpleasant to watch.
Okay. So Jaden Smith.
Yes.
Cultural stereotyping.
Yes.
Nepotism.
Yes.
Also
just like bad remake
Yeah.
juju. You know what I mean?
Like,
Like bad vibes.
Post 2000 remake of a movie that people love.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah.
Also, I will say it's an American movie starring Jackie Chan.
Yes.
And American movies starring Jackie Chan don't have the greatest track record
Right.
of quality.
Right.
I think Jackie Chan has always come out the other side of every movie he's ever been in looking good, whether it was a good movie or a bad movie.
Yeah.
But it is not a foregone conclusion that a Jackie Chan movie is going to be good.
Yeah, I guess. I don't think I've ever seen a Jackie Chan movie before.
Oh, really?
We're learning a lot about me this episode.
How do you feel? Do you like Jackie Chan?
I like him now.
Yeah?
Well, I guess maybe spoiler for how I felt about this movie.
Well, so I want to say, going into it, there was one last reason why I had pause about whether this was going to be a good movie or
Okay.
not. I had paid attention a little bit to the reviews when it first came out, and the reviews were mixed.
Yes.
Like, it was like a 66 on Rotten Tomatoes or something like that,
Okay.
which is like the definition of just as many
Mixed.
people liked it as didn't like it.
Sure.
Lots of people on the internet do not like this movie.
Yeah.
So, like, its IMDb rating, for example, is pretty low.
Yeah.
And the reviews are pretty scathing.
Okay.
And it seemed to me that the negative reviews fell into one of two camps.
Yeah.
One, I think, is super valid, and the other one I think is, now having seen both of them, invalid.
Okay. What's the first one?
The first one is that it's called The Karate Kid,
Okay.
which is a problem.
Yes.
Why is that a problem?
Because there's no karate in this movie.
Not even a little. Instead, because they're in China,
It's kung fu.
We have kung fu,
Yeah.
and we have Jackie Chan, who knows kung fu.
Yes.
Like Keanu Reeves. Now,
I get that reference.
good, finally. Great. So here's the thing about the title. I think this is indefensible. I think it absolutely should not be called The Karate Kid. I think that was a huge mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Turns out that it was not always called The Karate Kid. Like, there was discussion about whether it was going to be called something else.
Mm-hmm.
One person pushed for it to be called The Karate Kid, and that was Jerry Weintraub.
Gotcha.
The, like, one person in the production who was a holdover from the original.
Yeah.
So I guess he had the clout to say, no, it's The Karate Kid. Guys, it's The Karate Kid. Why would we call it anything but The Karate Kid?
Yeah.
According to Jackie Chan, like, on set, they all were referring to it as the Kung Fu Kid.
Yeah.
Which it should have been
It should
called.
have been.
Its title in China was The Kung Fu Dream,
Gotcha.
which makes sense.
Makes sense.
In Japan and South Korea, I love the title. I love the Japanese and South Korean title for this.
Okay.
Best Kid. By the way, not problematic as a remake because that was the title in Japan and South Korea of the original.
Great.
So that's the first criticism.
Right.
The other criticism that I see a lot is you cannot make a new remake with Jaden Smith and it's got a Justin Bieber song in it and flash in the pan people, whatever, of a movie that is a classic.
That is important to me, the man that is writing this review.
Not always men. Not always men.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
This is
Not
a
all men.
remake of a great movie. And all remakes of great movies, why would you even do this? I think that's an invalid criticism.
Okay.
And the reason I feel like I can say that is because, as we've said, The Karate Kid means nothing to us.
Right.
Now, I mean, before it meant nothing
Even
to
less.
us. Now, like, I think we both enjoy it.
Sure.
This is a fun movie.
Yeah.
I really, really liked it. I can see why people really loved it. But, like, it is not a great work of cinema.
No.
It was great for the culture at the time.
Yeah.
Like, I am not going to argue that Joe Esposito's You're the Best isn't. Did you know that it was not originally going to be in this movie?
No.
It was originally going to be in Rocky 3.
Great.
When it was replaced by Survivor's Eye of the Tiger.
Okay.
And then it was going to be in Flashdance when
Okay.
it was replaced by Maniac.
All fine songs.
Yeah, so it kept finding, it was trying to find the right vehicle, you know?
That's right.
And it found 1984's The Karate Kid.
That's fine.
It's like, it's a super, super fun pop, like for her, how important it is to pop culture, really, really important, great movie.
Yes.
but it is not above being remade
Right.
at all.
No.
And it's not like you couldn't improve on it.
No.
So I think that's an invalid criticism. I'm not willing to have that debate with anybody.
I think that's really fair.
Okay. So they decided to make this movie. Do you want to describe the plot to everybody? Because it's very different than the first one.
I mean, it's not different from the first one.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I've just checked my notes. Yes, it's not different even a
Checks
little.
notes, not different. Except instead of moving to California, Little Dre and mom Taraji P. Henson
Mm-hmm.
move to Beijing.
Yes. So, couple things. Yes, nothing is really different other than the setting.
Other than everything.
So the setting and the character names are all completely different and completely changed.
Yeah.
I was talking about before about how the original movie is like two things. There's the bones of the story, and then there's all like the set dressing and the icing and everything like that. This is a movie that keeps 100% of the bones of the story and is very, very selective about picking pieces from the like the set dressing, the icing of the first one, and then creating ones of its own.
Yes.
Would you say that sounds accurate?
I think that is accurate. I mean, I think there was a point where we were reading almost more into what you're talking about than was intended by the filmmakers, because we were about halfway through the movie when we realized that there should be subtitles.
Yeah. I thought this movie was making such an interesting choice.
We both did. I absolutely did. I was like, I understand perfectly what's happening. I guess I don't really need subtitles. How fascinating that they wanted us to see this through Xiao Dre's eyes, and not understand what anybody's saying.
Yeah, so there's the scene where he goes with, in this case, Mr. Han, played by Jackie Chan, to the other. I want to call it dojo,
Yeah,
but none of the words are right anymore.
The Kung Fu school.
He wants to go to the Kung Fu school, to the quote unquote Cobra Kai.
Yes.
And they, of course, Han has a conversation with the other master, with Master Lee, and they're having this very intense conversation, and we don't know a thing of what they're saying.
No.
So we rented this movie online, and it turned out whoever put this online fucked up and didn't put the subtitles in. And I thought at one point, hang on, I just want to try something. So I put on the closed captioning. So it's closed captions. So it's everything gets a subtitle.
Including the Chinese.
And yes, there's English for almost all of it.
Yeah.
We were missing tons of
We were
dialogue.
missing so much dialogue.
But it was such an we thought it was such an interesting choice.
It was great.
Like, even before I did that, I was like playing devil's advocate and saying, like, well, if the point of the movie is that Dre is a fish out of water, how better to illustrate that than put the audience on his side?
Yeah.
And also not understand and need other characters who know English to explain to him what's just gone on.
I actually loved it. At a certain point, we did turn the subtitles on.
Yes.
So that we could know what was being said.
Yeah. In retrospect, I wish they had made that decision.
Yeah,
I think that would have been a really good decision.
A bold choice. So before we go any further,
yeah,
I want to be very clear, because we kind of started this segment with all of the reasons why we thought this movie was going to be terrible.
Yeah.
And I will say my very first note as the movie was coming up, like before the movie even started, just when we were on like the iTunes screen, I saw the length and I wrote down 2 hours and 20 minutes, question mark, because I was so mad that I was going to have to watch this quote terrible movie for 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Well into the evening.
Yes.
Well past your bedtime.
Well past my bedtime.
We watched it up until like a quarter after 9.
Yeah. I'm gonna come right out and say it. I loved this movie.
It was super fun.
It was great. I enjoyed it. It was fantastic. I loved all of the characters. I loved the acting. I loved the setting. I loved the fights.
Okay, wait. So I want to slow down for
Yes.
a second, because I felt basically the same way you did.
Yes.
So let's go through all those really
Okay.
quickly. So let's talk about the characters.
Okay.
Can we run through them all?
Yeah.
Okay. So we have Dre Parker.
Xiao Dre.
Yeah. What did you think of the character Dre Parker is played by Jaden Smith?
Super realistic.
Right?
I thought, for a kid, like a fish out of water, kid from Detroit, who suddenly finds himself in Beijing and does not want to fucking be there.
Mm-hmm.
Total culture shock. But also like a good kid just not happy. He's not happy to be there.
Yeah, they did take some stuff out of the like Daniel character.
Yeah.
They removed one thing that we responded to so well that bummed me out a little bit.
Yeah.
Which was, you talk about Dog Lady.
Yeah.
She's my Sir not appearing in this
Sure.
film because she does not appear in this movie.
Right.
Like there's no version of her. We never get the sense that this is a kid who's really into talking to adults.
Right.
That never happens.
It doesn't happen.
It's
okay,
at the
but
end of
it
the day,
doesn't happen.
It wasn't necessary, but it was such a nice touch from the first one that it would have been nice to see it in this one.
Yes. So there is Dre's mom.
Yep.
Taraji P. Henson.
Sherry Parker.
Yep. Who has a new job, new life. Oh, we know from the very first shot of the movie that dad is dead.
Yeah, it's so fucked up. Do you want to describe it?
Yeah, basically the first shot of the movie is like clearly their house where they've lived for a really long time. There's like a little height chart on the door, to show the passage of time with the kid growing. But what they've also done is write milestones on the door next to the height. So like first day of kindergarten, like second grade, dad died.
Yeah. Daddy died.
Daddy died. And then further up, so that was like a couple of years ago, because then we go way up. He puts a line and writes...
Not so far up,
but it was a couple years ago, clearly.
He's a little kid.
Yeah. He puts a line and writes, move to China.
Yeah.
They are moving to China. She has a new job in the auto factory.
Yeah, she works in a factory.
Well, if they're from Detroit, she works in the auto industry, and she's clearly moved to China because there's an auto industry there.
Right.
It's fine.
You can say that as a Michigander.
I can indeed.
Mm-hmm.
I, again... did not give the movie enough credit
because
one of the things that I liked about the 1984 movie was how specific it was to the place where the character came from, for Mr. Miyagi in particular. That he wasn't just from the Mystic East, that he was from a very specific city in a very specific country in a very specific time and place.
Yep.
And I was convinced that literally the only reference to where they were going to be living was, quote, China.
Yeah.
And I said to you, I just want to hear one reference to the city that they're going to. I just want to know where they are, because China is a very, very big country. Where are they going? And I didn't give the movie enough credit, because literally this is still opening credits. They're on the plane. They land, welcome to Beijing. And then there's like sort of a guided tour of Beijing. You see like the Olympic Stadium, and it very clearly places you see the Forbidden City. Like it very clearly places these people in Beijing, and they pull up to this apartment that clearly her company has arranged for her to live in, and it's clearly like it's like a whole thing, and they have like a guide, and the first person he meets is this extremely blonde kid because it seems like there's like expat apartments like in this place that they're living.
There's a really nice touch that I liked in the dialogue where they've got this guide who's dropping them off at the apartment, and she's telling Sherry about like the next person she's going to talk to, like at the factory, and she just throws in at the end like, and his English is very good.
Yeah.
That just felt super real to me. And it was just accommodating in a real way.
Yeah.
And I've definitely heard that before.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Because I think a thing that happens in fish out of water stories all the time is almost unbelievably, the culture that the fish out of water is entering is almost set up in every way to make them feel like a fish out of water.
Right.
When in reality, in the world we live in, a lot of times people are pretty welcoming and people are pretty accommodating.
Sure. But I think there's sort of two versions of it, neither of which this was. It's either everybody suddenly speaks perfect English, which wouldn't necessarily be the case.
Which does not happen in this.
Or nobody speaks a word of English, despite them being in a major city with well-educated people who probably have to deal with English-speaking people on a daily basis.
Of course, very large city. Some of these people speak a little English.
Some of them speak a little English. Some of them speak a lot of English, but some of them speak no English, as would be realistic.
Right.
Yes.
So we've got Dre Parker.
Yeah.
We have his mom Sherry. We also meet almost immediately. We meet our Allie placeholder, Mei Ying, played by Wen Han. What did you think of Mei Ying in this?
So similar to Allie.
In what way?
Cutest, most popular, most talented girl in school. She likes him immediately.
For
and
any
there's
reason?
no reason whatsoever, and because he is awkward as shit.
There's actually one thing that happens multiple times in this movie that I'm really interested to hear someone else's perspective on.
Okay.
When I say someone else, I mean
Me?
someone. No,
Oh.
not you.
Oh, okay.
No, I would like to hear from the perspective of someone who is Black.
Uh-huh.
Because the very first thing that Mei Ying wants to do with Dre, what does she ask to do?
Touch his hair.
She has to touch his hair.
Yeah. And there's a scene later, too, where the mom gets mobbed by all these tiny kids and they're all touching her hair.
Yeah. Like, I'm fascinated to know what people's reactions are to that.
Yeah.
Because I know that like, as a symbol of human interaction, like, comes with a lot.
It seems extremely realistic.
Yes.
Would be my guess. I have never been to China and I'm not Black.
You've never been to China
I have
while
never,
Black?
I've never been, certainly have never been to China while Black. But it seems realistic, especially knowing that Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith were producers on this movie and
Yes.
had spent time in China.
Yes. And from everything I've seen, they were very involved.
Yes.
Like, this wasn't like executive producers in name only. Like, really involved because they were just like pushing their kid.
They were
out
there
into
with
the
the kid.
spotlight.
Yeah.
Yeah, make our kid a star.
Yes.
He, like, just as an aside, he's like a little miniature Will Smith.
Yeah.
He really is. Like, there's so many things that he's clearly doing because he's making jokes when you, how do I say this? You know, you meet those kids that are like a carbon copy of their parents?
Yes.
Like your friends' kids.
Yeah.
And they talk like their parents. They're someone you've been friends with for years, and suddenly their little kid is talking like this person you know.
Right.
They're talking like them because they see them every day.
Right.
It's gonna happen. It's so weird watching a movie with Jaden Smith.
Yes.
It's very, very strange.
Yes.
But he's really good. So Mei Ying, I think she's a strong character.
She's great.
She's got things that she's passionate about. She's got things that she likes.
She plays the violin.
She's a smart character. The only problem is exactly the same problem as you say from the first one, which is she likes him the whole time for kind of no reason.
Right.
Like, he's not a bad kid.
No, he's not a bad kid.
It's fine, but they don't sell it that well.
Yeah.
He also meets Chang,
Mm-hmm.
who is our new Johnny.
Yes.
Who is Zhenwei Wang.
Yes.
What'd you think about Chang?
I mean, he was good at bullying.
So good.
We didn't have the subtitles on for most of the part of the movie where he had spoken dialogue.
I don't think that matters.
I don't think it matters. It was very clear, but it was sort of the opposite thing, which is just he hated this kid immediately, sort of again for no reason, and just did not want any part of being with this kid.
I just go back to what I was saying before. Like, if you're going to give me a villain who is practically two-dimensional, like Chang, like, has a little more dimensionality than just two dimensions.
Yeah.
A little bit. Enough for me. If you're going to give me someone who's almost two-dimensional, at least make them charismatic and
Yeah.
compelling and fun to watch. And this movie did that.
Yeah.
He's a piece of shit child.
Yes.
With a terrible, evil look on his face the
The whole
entire
time.
movie. And he beats the shit out of Dre
Oh,
at the
there's
beginning.
like so much punching.
Like, beats the shit out of him. I was here for it.
Yeah.
I was here for Chang. I thought he was great.
And you know what I actually really liked? Over the closing credits, there was they just showed a bunch of still pictures, but they were all
like from the production.
From the production. They weren't from the movie. They were from like backstage essentially. And there was a bunch of the two boys together and it looked like they got along great.
Yeah.
And they were cute pictures and it was nice to see this kid like smiling.
Yeah.
Because he does not smile even once in the
No,
movie.
he smiles a couple of times after he's beat the shit out of Jaden
Yeah, but it's
Smith.
like an evil grin. This was like a sweet child.
Yeah.
You know?
He's so good at doing the thing that they required of
Yes.
him that I have no problem with him.
Yes.
I think he did a great job.
And the other, like, very small character that is not important really even a little is this blonde kid that he meets right at the
He's
beginning.
like the new Freddy.
Like the new Freddy, who's like, hey, are you the new kid in the building? Yeah, I'm so-and-so. I live here too. Bloody blah. I'm going to show you around. Bloody bloody blah.
Yeah,
and,
I'd love to hear any exposition you're willing to give me about your travels, young sir.
Well, the funny thing was I couldn't figure out for a minute why he was such a bad actor. Like, because it didn't seem to jive with, like, the rest of the production quality of the movie. And then I realized it's because they needed to find a blonde kid who spoke fluent Chinese because
at least some Chinese.
Or at least some Chinese. I guess we don't know if it was fluent or not. He sounded fine. They needed to find a blonde kid who spoke Chinese.
We're going to talk a little bit more in a bit about like our perception of the accuracy of this movie.
I'm just saying like the casting call would have been very specific
Totally.
for this particular role.
Totally.
Because he had to translate and also tell these kids to not beat the shit out of poor Little Dre.
Yeah. Now, speaking of telling kids to beat the shit or not beat the shit out of Little Dre,
Yes.
let's talk about Kreese. Let's
Ooh.
talk about our new Kreese,
Master Lee.
Master Lee.
Yes.
This one I was really excited about
Mm-hmm.
because more than any other character, I really think he feels the most different from the original version of the character.
Yes, I actually agree with that a lot, but in a very interesting way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What separates them for you? What makes them different?
This guy is like quietly evil,
Mhm.
and Kreese is like screaming and shouting.
Yeah.
This guy has like a very forceful silence.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
The other thing that I did want to just mention is something that made me laugh when we watched the original one was that you only see in the 1984 version, you only see the one class of karate students getting screamed at, by Kreese.
Yes.
And they're all like 18 to 35, basically. They're supposed to be in high school.
They're all 17 to 19,
Yeah.
but really 17 to 35.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I made the joke to you, I want to see what the 5-year-old class at
Cobra Kai
looks like.
The Cobra Kids.
The Cobra Kids, but when he goes to the Kung Fu studio, we do see the 5-year-olds, and then we see like the 2-year-olds, and it's so cute. But this group is obviously like the elite.
Yes.
The elite group.
Mhm.
It's a much smaller group of the older students, some of whom are so old that they are balding, and some of them are 12.
Yeah. No, but the thing about it is I feel like Kreese in the original really felt like someone who, like, how he acted came out of a lack of self-esteem.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
this is a person who really feels like he has something to prove.
Yeah.
And he's going to prove that by being really loud and really violent.
Yes.
And that actually makes him more comedic. It makes him feel less dangerous
Yeah.
because of that, which is why, like, we talk about the first scene in Karate Kid 2 when Miyagi like kicks his ass. Like, that scene ends with Miyagi like going to chop his head off, but instead he just honks his nose.
Yeah.
That works because Kreese is a comedic character.
Yes.
He's dangerous but comedic.
Yes.
Master Lee is not comedic.
Yeah, no one's gonna honk Master Lee's nose.
No.
No, like as you say, like Kreese seems like at any moment on the verge of losing control and like fighting this battle and often losing to just like keep it together. Master Lee is in perfect control.
Yes. And when he isn't, shit's gonna go down.
Yes.
Because he's Master Lee.
Yes.
He's a very dangerous person. And again, super fun to watch.
Yeah,
It made
and
it made it really interesting.
And he's so like Kreese, Mr. Miyagi thinks is a bad teacher
Yeah.
and probably a bad person and ridiculous. But he isn't frightened of him.
No.
In this, and we're going to talk
Right.
about Mr. Han in a second. Mr. Han's a little frightened of Master Lee because he's a very bad man.
Well, there's that. So can I describe the scene really quickly?
Yeah.
So when they go to visit them at the not Cobra Kai school, it's the same scene that happens in the original where Miyagi goes up to him and says like, "Hey, tell your kids to leave this kid alone."
Yeah.
And the other guy goes, "Well, I won't do that." And Miyagi says, "Well, cool. How about he kicks all your kids' asses at this tournament that's coming up?"
Right.
That scene happens, but it ends very, very differently.
Yeah.
And this goes back to what we were talking about not knowing what they were saying because we didn't have the subtitles.
Right. And this
it was-
actually was the scene where we realized we could turn the subtitles on.
Yeah. But as they're walking away, like, Mr. Han is not going to say this. He's not going to make Dre fight these kids.
Yeah.
He's going to turn around and leave. And Lee, there's just this beautifully staged moment where Lee grabs Han's arm and then Han grabs Dre's arm.
Yeah.
Because he's scared.
Yeah.
It's all played out physically. You don't need to know a single thing of what they're saying. And I have the proof of that, which is that we didn't know a single thing of what they were saying.
Correct.
Until after. And then it was funny too, because immediately after, Han is explaining to Dre everything that just happened
Right.
and all the stuff they were saying. So you don't need the
don't need
subtitles.
it.
But that was a moment where you really feel like Lee is a lot scarier than Kreese is.
Yeah.
And Han, unlike Miyagi, is actually afraid of things.
Yeah. So we've mentioned Han a couple times.
Yeah.
Maybe we should talk about Han.
We should talk about Jackie Chan.
Yeah. Jackie Chan is a pure delight. I loved him. He's great. I guess I didn't really, because I'm not familiar with his body of work.
Mhm.
I said to you at one point, are his fights funny? And you were like, yeah, that's the whole point of Jackie Chan. I was like, oh, because there's the scene where he beats up all of the kids who are trying to pick on Dre. At one point, he picks up one kid and uses him as a weapon against the other kids. And it was like laugh out loud funny.
Uh-huh.
I was like, is that like a Jackie Chan thing? And you were like, yes, absolutely. That is like what he does.
Yeah.
And then we watched a YouTube video about like, that kind of went into depth about the style of Jackie Chan's fights. And it totally made sense.
I'm going to link to it. So this is Every Frame of Painting has come up on this show before. It's my favorite YouTube channel. Unfortunately, there's no new videos being made, but Tony Zhu is the editor who makes this show. He did an entire video just about Jackie Chan's fight scenes, and I'm 100% linking to it. It's an amazing look at what Jackie Chan does. And actually, the video... because I'd never seen this before, because I'd watched that video, there were so many different ways I could look at the fight scenes in this. I don't think the fight scenes are shot well enough to showcase just how good Jackie Chan is.
Yes.
I think it's guilty. It's shot like an American movie where Jackie Chan is fighting versus a Chinese movie where Jackie Chan is fighting.
Now having watched that YouTube video, I understand the difference between those two things.
Yeah, and it just like it boils down to too many cuts, not showing all of the action, too many tight shots, too much of a moving camera, so you can't really see just how talented these fighters are.
Sure.
But I also think too, this kid fight scene, like you compare it to the one in the original. In the original movie, you've got clearly a stunt double because like Pat Morita was not a fighter.
Right.
That was not his thing.
He was an actor.
Like, he didn't do the crane kick. That was a stunt double. He's a good actor. It's all in darkness with a stunt double. You don't really get to see everything. This one is Jackie Chan doing everything in broad daylight.
Beating the shit out of a bunch of kids.
Children.
Yes.
Well,
some of them were not children.
No, quote unquote children. They're movie kids.
Some of them were balding.
They're movie kids. Movie kids can be bald. It's okay.
Okay.
It's totally fine.
All right.
But that scene is a delight. So Jackie Chan's fight scenes are great. Physically, Jackie Chan is amazing on screen.
Yes.
Like, I can't think of many people who have the physical presence on screen that Jackie Chan does today. He's singular.
Yes.
Acting.
I thought the chemistry that he had with Jaden Smith was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I know that you said you had read some reviews where that they said exactly the opposite. Like there's no chemistry between anyone in this movie. I don't know what movie they were watching because the two of them together I found to be like magical.
Yeah.
I just loved their relationship. I thought they were great. And I thought Jackie Chan showed an enormous range of acting because they do like the sad scene where Jaden Smith finds out that he had this wife and child, his dark secret, and it was a car accident in this case, and he was driving, so he feels guilty. He lost his son and his wife, but just like he shows a range of acting and emotion, and there's a little bit of a difference actually at the very end. I'm skipping ahead, but there's the sort of the same thing happens, right? That they're at this big tournament, and Jaden Smith gets illegally kicked in the leg, and he has to go back, backstage to be maybe disqualified.
You say kicked in the leg. Chekhov's kid with a conscience is like punching him in the knee repeatedly.
Yeah, like breaking his knee. And he's arguing with Mr. Han. I want to go back out. Can't you fix me? Because we already know Mr. Han has some healing skills.
Yes.
He's saying, can't you fix me? I want to go back out. Mr. Han is like, why? Why do you want to go out? You have nothing. You have nothing to prove. You're fine. And Jaden Smith's response is like, why don't you want me to go out? I don't understand. Like, don't you want me? I want to go. Why are you stopping me? And Mr. Han just has this amazing moment where he's like, I can't watch you get hurt again. And you just know, like, everything that about him, that he lost his son who was about the same age, everything is just in his face. And it's just this beautiful moment of acting. I don't know that you think of Jackie Chan as being like this emotional great actor, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, like I have there's so many questions that I have about this production. Like I can't leave it all up to just the actors because the directing has to come in here. This was directed by Harold Zwart.
Okay.
Who did, among some other things, Agent Cody Banks.
Okay.
Starring Frankie Muniz. And The Pink Panther 2 with Steve Martin.
Okay.
Like, I am so happy that he had this movie in him.
Yes.
Because this seems a little different
Yeah.
than his prior movies. But if what he had in him was to be able to get these performances out of these actors, I think he deserves to be applauded for it because he got great performances out of everybody.
Yeah, like there's a scene where Jaden Smith is like crying and he just turns to the camera and you can see like the tear just falling from his eye. Like it was he had real emotion. Like
it's like an 11-year-old kid with subtlety.
Yeah, he got him there. And I
Yeah.
don't know how you do that. I don't know how you get an 11-year-old kid to cry on camera. Like,
I mean, I think the first thing you need to do is make sure that your parents are Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith.
I guess so. Yeah, and then
Yeah.
you just tell them that their dog died or something.
I did like that when we were going through the credits, like 2 credits popped out right after each other. One is Jackie Chan's dialect coach,
Yep.
and the other was Jaden Smith's acting coach.
Good.
Yes,
Like good.
good.
Give them some support.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Like that's the kind of shit that pays off in the end.
Well, and there were the other thing that if we're going to talk about things we noticed in the credits,
Yeah.
I think this is a good lead in.
Mhm.
There were multiple like cultural coordinator,
Mhm.
cultural researcher. And one of the things that really struck me, I'm not going to say literally knowing very little about China, never having been there, don't know much about it. So I'm not going to say like this was so realistic for what China is like because I have no idea what China is like. But it was so consistent that I was absolutely willing to believe everything that they were giving me
yeah.
about what it is like to live in Beijing, especially as an American person.
Yeah. Well, I feel like there's 2 things that happen. There's 2 things that you can look at in terms of accuracy.
Yes.
One is accurate enough to satisfy experts who know about the thing.
Yes.
And then there's accurate enough to satisfy an audience who doesn't know about that.
Right.
So, like in this case, a Western audience.
Yes. And the first one we cannot speak to.
Right.
But the second one, I feel like I've said things on here before that it was like, oh my God, that was so ridiculous that it just took me out of it. And I couldn't focus on the movie because I was so taken out by this ridiculous thing that happened that is totally divorced from anyone's experience of human actions, emotion, or like place. And I never got that in this movie. I expected that would be like, what I expected was that would be like constant.
Yeah.
And I didn't get that at all. Like not even a little.
Mhm.
I like at one point, like when this is stupid, but when they go to the tournament, right? There's this huge colorful video scoreboard that's like not only showing like animations of like the kids and the points that they're accruing, but also like instant replay of the different shots. And my immediate reaction was like, oh, what is this ridiculous scoreboard? That's not a thing. And then I went, well, I don't know. Maybe they have that in China. Like, I have no idea.
And all they need to do is make it consistent in
Yeah.
the movie.
Right. It just has to be consistent in the world that they've created. And I think they did a really good job with it.
Yeah, they do one thing that's like another pet peeve of mine.
Okay.
So like I already talked about how a pet peeve that I have is when movies just end.
Yes.
Another pet peeve I have is when characters in the movie are watching video replay of something, but the video replay is the footage we as an audience just saw.
Yes.
With all the same cuts and angles.
Yes.
I hate that
They,
shit.
they did do that.
so much. That took me out of it.
I'm sorry.
But like that's not something this movie is the only movie guilty
Yes,
of.
that's right. That's right.
But yeah, like this movie does so many things to make it feel consistent, and they're doing things that are really smart. So like by casting Jackie Chan and involving him a great deal, it brings a lot of authenticity
Yeah.
to the movie. So a couple things. They were like the first movie to shoot in the Forbidden City for decades, I
Interesting.
think. They go to places around Beijing. I'm not talking about the Great Wall. The Great Wall scene
The
is
Great
silly.
Wall scene was silly.
That's silly. That didn't need to happen.
They do the crane pose like on top of the Great Wall. The thing
While
that,
there's no tourists
that
there.
that was the thing that felt unrealistic to me because I've seen pictures of people I know that have been to the Great Wall of China, and in any shot there are hundreds of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that felt inauthentic. But you contrast that with so many different scenes in the movie that are taking place in places that we don't normally see in these kind of movies. It felt like, honestly, like a loving, respectful portrayal of a place in the world that I don't know anything about.
Yes.
That's what it felt like as a Westerner viewing this movie.
Yes, and I'm sure if we were familiar with Beijing, like the scene where they kind of drive around the city and see all the landmarks, we would be laughing, saying, well, that's nowhere near
It's like in
that.
Home Alone 2, where you're like, Kevin McAllister can't see the New York skyline from the airport.
Yes.
That is not a real thing.
Yes, and I'm sure there's stuff in there like that. Unquestionably there is.
Totally.
But for people without any kind of background, it felt very consistent.
Yeah.
That's the word I'm going to keep using, is consistency.
Yeah. And not only in the way they dealt with the place, but also the way they dealt with the people.
Yes.
And they do a thing in this movie that I always appreciate in any movie where you have characters from, like, let's say the United States going to another country and another culture. When it's done badly, all of the people existing in that culture are there for comedic benefit or something like that.
Yeah.
They're not characters. They're just an ocean of stereotypes.
Yeah.
In a good version of that story, it feels like the culture they're entering would be just barreling ahead on
Yes.
its own, whether that observer was there or not.
Yes, it is not there for their benefit.
Yeah.
But they're perfectly willing to interact with the person that's showing up, who's making mistakes, like not wearing the school uniform on the right day.
Oh, that poor kid.
That poor kid.
Oh, just can't get it right.
Can't get it right.
Wears it when he's not supposed to,
Or
and
even, like-
doesn't wear it when he's supposed to.
Or even like the scene where his girlfriend's parents have told her she can't see him anymore
Mhm.
because he made her late and kind of got her into a little bit of trouble with her violin audition, even though she did great,
Yes.
which is good. But her dad is like a real person. Like, he's not a monster.
No.
He's not a caricature. He just doesn't want her hanging out with this boy that clearly is like doing things like causing her to miss important events in her life.
He got her to skip out school. Like,
Yeah.
like he is a bad influence.
He's a bad influence.
He's not like a terrible, horrible, habitual offender bad influence.
No, he's just like, you have made a mistake and you can't see this boy anymore.
Yeah.
And he goes to their house and Mr. Lee has basically clearly like schooled him phonetically on how to
Mr. Han.
Who did I say?
Mr. Lee. Master Lee
Oh, not
doesn't
Master
give a
Lee. I'm
shit
so
about
sorry.
how Dre's relationship with Mei Ying is going.
Mr. Han has like schooled him phonetically and he has little note cards on how to apologize essentially to dad.
Like, if anything, Master Lee would make him intentionally say
Right.
something to make Mei Ying's dad kick him in the
Yes,
dick.
that was just a slip of the tongue. But the dad, like, your expectation from like movies that include stereotypical characters, like the mean dad, your expectation is the dad is going to be mean and
Yeah.
not care and like not let this soften his heart. But he's really charmed by it, as like you would be, because this kid is really trying. What?
I only have one quibble.
What?
Not with your argument, but like with the movie at this
Okay.
point. So he hears this entire apology from Dre.
Yes.
And what he says is, so my daughter promised that she would be at your competition tomorrow night.
Yes.
In this family, we keep promises. They definitely are playing into that. And I'm just going to say, like, that Asian stereotype of honor
Mhm.
and how important honor is in Western cinema and TV.
Right. And part of Dre's apology is, I have dishonored your family.
Yeah. Like, that felt a little weird to me.
I guess.
That pushed me away a tiny little bit.
But-
not that that's not a real thing, but I know that's a trope, and I'm just more sensitive to it.
It is a trope, but again, in terms of believability, I'm going, yeah, I mean, Mr. Han, that's what he told him to say.
Yes, that's
Maybe
fair.
that's what you say.
That's totally fair.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. This is so much more fun than I expected.
Yeah.
So much better than it deserved to be at all.
Less predictable than I assumed it was going to be,
Yeah,
even though
like-
obviously you know how it ends.
Yeah, exactly. Like, the train's on rails.
Yeah.
You know what the final stop is. You know what the final station is,
all
but
of
you don't
the-
know how fast it's going to go
All
or
of
where
the
it's going to
training,
stop.
yeah, all of the training montage was fun.
Oh,
And-
the fight choreography is great.
Yeah.
So in the original, anyone who's seen the original knows that there's the whole like wax on, wax off. All of this is teaching him movements that he's going to use in karate.
Yes.
And in this one, it just comes down to one thing. He's got his jacket and he just makes him put it, like Han makes Dre put his jacket on the ground, pick it up, put it on, take it off, hang it up, put it on the ground, put it on, take it off, hang it up.
Well, right, because we know one of Dre's undisciplined habits is when he comes home, he throws his jacket on the floor,
Yeah.
and his mom hates it.
And this is great because this was a moment where I thought it was going to be predictable.
Yes.
And I was wrong.
Well, and then you were right, but you were also wrong.
Kind of. I don't think I was right.
Okay.
Where I thought the thing that was later in the movie was going to show how much Dre had accepted responsibility and was growing as a character is that he'd be able to remember to put his jacket up without his mom yelling at him to do it.
Yes.
By the way, Taraji P. Henson, like Sherry Parker.
National treasure.
I was going to say, like, good mother.
Yeah.
She's a pretty good mother.
Yeah, she's great.
She does her best, and she is a very realistic mother.
Yeah, yes.
I think. She's not, like, falling over herself the way Daniel's mom is to make his life happy, but she really wants him to be happy.
She struck me as
But she's not putting up with his bullshit.
Yeah, she struck me as the kind of person who, and this was not explicit, but the kind of person who was like, I need to do something for myself. Of course, I will still take care of my child, but I actually don't care how he feels about the fact that we live in Beijing now. This is a thing I'm doing for me.
Yes.
Which I do not begrudge her. It sounds like the last couple years of her life have been tough.
Yeah.
What with dad dying and all.
Oh, yeah. Daddy died. Oh, so getting back to the jacket, that I thought was, here's a couple of things about it. And I think there's so much that goes into it. One, I don't think it plays as well as Wax On, Wax Off does.
Yes.
And the reason why is when Daniel is waxing Miyagi's cars and painting his house and painting his fence and sanding his deck, he doesn't necessarily have an indication that what he's doing is actually training him.
Right.
He thinks he's just a servant at this point.
Because what he's doing actually has some benefit to Mr. Miyagi.
Right. And then what it turns out is like what Miyagi is having him doing actually has ancillary benefits.
Yes.
What Jaden Smith is doing, what Dre is doing with the jacket isn't anything useful. So it's very clear that this is in some way related to his training.
Yes.
And that to me, like, it's still interesting and it's still visually interesting. And they end up making it make sense in the movie, but I don't think it has the same impact that it does in the original.
Yes.
But the other cool thing about it is Jackie Chan came up with that.
Oh, that's great.
Like, that was his idea. He was super involved in this from everything I can see. Like, I think he was really passionate about this.
Yeah. And the other thing, too, just to say, we do in the movie see the shot that you anticipated, which is the kid comes home, automatically hangs up his jacket, and his mom looks at it in surprise.
Yes, that does happen.
That does happen.
Yeah.
Yes.
But that was an example of where I thought the movie was going to go in one way, and it didn't, which was good for two reasons. One, it subverted my expectations, and two, it was creating moments that exist separate from the original.
Yes.
That was the thing, and I think this is a good thing to end on. People love the original because they've seen it a million times, and each individual moment feels bigger than it really is because they've watched it a million times.
Yes.
Like, we have this experience. There are movies I love where someone says a one-off line, and now it's my favorite line in the movie, but, like, not for any reason other than I've watched it a million times.
Sure.
So, like, Sweep the Leg.
Yes.
Okay. There is absolutely no reason that Master Lee needs to tell Chang to sweep the leg.
Yes.
That doesn't need to happen
But
in
he
this.
does.
He does, but he doesn't say sweep the leg.
Well, he does. He says it, but in Chinese.
He says break his leg.
Break his leg.
Break his leg. It's in Chinese with subtitles. They allow the moment to become its own.
Yeah.
They allow the moment to become specific to this story with these characters in this place and not feel beholden to the original. So, like, this new one is full of little references to the original and little callbacks, but there's tons of things that it doesn't call back at all.
Yeah.
That may have been someone else's favorite part of the original.
Yes.
And they may think, how could you possibly make a remake and not have the skeleton costumes?
Right.
Or something like that.
Or the shower.
Yeah. Like, maybe there's someone who, maybe there are some best friends who love this movie more than anything, and they have done, like, a buddy costume for years where one of them dresses up as a skeleton and the other one dresses up as a shower.
It could be.
And it doesn't make any sense to them that wouldn't be in the remake.
Yes.
But that's not relevant to the central story, so it doesn't need to be there.
That's right.
And this is a movie, like I said, that is willing to make references, but is also doing everything it can to make new moments that are relevant to this story.
Agreed.
That's the end of my TED Talk.
Agreed.
So many TED Talks
We have to
today.
stop doing TED Talks.
Do you want to do some quadrants really quick and then wrap up?
Totally.
Okay, so
Well,
we've got... Do you think they cared about the original?
Yes.
Like, absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. One of the producers was the original producer, and there were so many little, as you just got through saying, so many little moments and homages to the original movie.
They love it. They love the original.
They love it.
Did they do a good job?
Yeah.
This show says yes.
This was, of everything we've watched for the podcast so far,
Nigh on 50 episodes.
50 episodes, this one surprised me the most. I expected to hate it, and I loved it. Biggest surprise between expectation and reality so far.
Yeah. It was so much fun.
Yes.
So much fun. This was great. I'm glad we finally did this.
Yeah.
I'm glad I have finally, now I understand what all of these things mean.
Fantastic. We're
It's
learning
great.
so much.
Well, this has been Adapter Parish. If you'd like to find us online, we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at AdaptCast. And if you tweet about the show, don't forget to use the AdaptCast hashtag. As always, if this is your first time joining us, we have a new episode every 2 weeks. We certainly hope that you subscribe and you can hear us talk about all kinds of fun stuff going forward every 2 weeks. You can join our groups on Facebook and Goodreads, and you can also find and follow me on Letterboxd. If you have anything to say that's longer than a tweet, you can always send an email to adapterparishcast@gmail.com. And finally, if you'd like to support the show, there are 2 great ways you can do it. First, tell a friend. Second, a rating and review on your podcast platform of choice would always be greatly appreciated.
Sweep the leg.
So you're just ending on Sweep the Leg?
Sweep that leg.
Gotcha. Fantastic. Bye, everyone.
Bye.